Hello, I'm Helene Oberman, Managing Director of Interior Design Magazine, and I'd like to welcome you. For nearly 30 years, Rocky Mountain Hardware has been creating handcrafted bronze hardware and accessories right in the heart of Idaho. This family-owned business connects old world techniques with modern precision in the production of their designs, which transcend the ordinary into the extraordinary. From classic to modern to minimalist, each of their collections reflect a timeless style and enduring beauty, and all are sustainably made in order to protect the very splendor of the landscape around them. With me today to discuss the brand and their latest collaboration with a very celebrated New York design firm are Christian Nickum, President of Rocky Mountain Hardware, and Lawrence Chabra and Thomas Day of Robert A.M. Stern Architects. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you, Helene. Good to be here today, and appreciate the opportunity to explain who we are and what we do here at Rocky Mountain Hardware.
Well, with that, Christian, that was a very good segue because, I would love to start with you and get a little history behind the brand. So I know that your parents founded the company back in 1994 when they really saw a real demand for custom hardware. So can you go into a little bit more detail about the founding of Rocky Mountain Hardware and how it's really developed over the last 30 years?
Certainly. Yeah. We live here in the heart of Idaho, as you had mentioned, in a ski resort area called Sun Valley, Idaho. And my folks back in the day used to run a window and door shop. So we would build, custom windows, custom doors, tailoring to this particular area, as well as Jackson Hole, Wyoming. It's pretty close proximity to where we are. So via that, had a lot of influential people involved in a lot of those projects, and we got the opportunity to work with many people. So along the way, my dad had a particular friend that was an architect in town that came to him one day and said, "Gosh, Mark, we just do not have any beautiful hardware to add to these doors that you guys produce," and that's kind of really where the brand was born, and light bulb went off in his head. My dad had a friend with a little art studio down the road, and that's kind of, he collaborated with him, cast a few door handles for this original project. And then, from that point forward, that was kind of the beginning,
Something that we touched on, and I know it's very near to you, is obviously the fact that you are a company that is based in Idaho, and, you are surrounded by some of the most beautiful landscape. But what is the brand's relationship to the environment around you, and how does this really impact sort of your manufacturing process?
Well, yeah, growing up in this beautiful landscape, we've really learned to appreciate our surroundings and how special they really are, because during everybody's travels, we look and see what's happening to the world, so to speak, because of big industry, this, that, and the other. So it's a really touchy point for us. And so what we have done is, we've looked at all of our manufacturing processes and made them as green as possible, so to speak, all the way beginning from the moment we do our castings, the material we use being 100% recycled bronze, and our packaging materials, and so on and so forth. And then in addition to that, we allow our team members, to really kind of tailor a lot of their schedules to be able to enjoy the area. So a lot of our crew works 4-10s, and so they've got a 3-day weekend to go enjoy the area. So
moving on, designers always speak about sort of their materiality when specifying their products. I'm sure Lawrence and Thomas can get into this. And I know for Rocky Mountain Hardware, it's really always been centered on bronze. That is, your go-to. But what are some of the benefits? First of all, why bronze? And really, what are some of the benefits of crafting your designs in this noble material?
Gosh, primarily, bronze has been around for forever, and it's a tried and true material, and it creates its own very unique and beautiful patinas with time. And so I mean, that's kind of the mainstay, I would say. And we cast in a few different types of bronzes. One that's a silicon bronze, which is more the typical goldish brown bronze that everybody might think of when they think of bronze. And then another alloy which is called white bronze. And it has some other elements in it that makes it more of a white metal, you know, so more similar to, say, stainless steel or what have you. So, and from those two alloys, we're able to patina to multiple different finishes to really capture the desire, you know, of the designer, the homeowner, whomever it may be, to really pick a finish that they like to fit into their project. Bronze also has some other unique inherent attributes to it, which are you know, antimicrobial properties. The bronze is also very, very warm and you know, it just has a great feel to it. You know, it's a very organic, natural product, which is a beautiful product.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And I like the fact that it has this natural, I mean, it's kind of funny, like now we talk about health and wellness all the time. Everyone seems to like hone in on things like antimicrobial and the fact that it's just an inherent property of something like bronze. But, you know, you really do. And I especially, I'm sure over the last 30 years have really come to understand the needs of the design community and really have grown a wide portfolio that really can accommodate pretty much most, if not all, project specifications, correct?
Yep, that is absolutely correct. And I think back to what I had said previously, you know, a lot of that was born just with our opportunity as we spread our wings and continued to capture and go into other markets, working with great design professionals to design product to fit into specific projects. And again, those are arrayed from a vast variety of architectural styles. So,
mm-hmm. And you know, and as we all know, though, designers love to customize, and you know, that's really in the DNA of the company to bring these like custom designs to life. I mean, that is why your parents really decided ultimately to found Rocky Mountain Hardware, correct?
That's exactly correct. Yep. Again, we've just got a can-do attitude, and we've carried the torch on that as my parents have been out of the business, and have really, you know, hardly ever say no. You know, we'll look at certain projects and whether it's you know, door hardware, cabinet hardware, kitchen and bath accessories, and lighting, which we're kind of known for. Beyond that, we've done all sorts of other projects, from custom furniture, a lot of restoration work where we're actually you know, matching old existing hardware that might be on a project from, you know, 100 years ago, and then researching those alloys that were used at that point in time and casting in those original alloys. So again, beyond bronze, we do a lot of other work.
Mm-hmm. Well, you obviously have a long tradition of partnering with designers on their custom work, but you also have come on as design collaborators for collections that are part of the Rocky Mountain brand. So can you walk us through some of those designers with whom you've partnered? And if you just so happen to have a few favorites that you are able to share.
You bet. Yeah. Yeah, we've had the opportunity to work with, and our very first design collaboration was with a gentleman named Roger Thomas. He was head of design for the wind properties. And so with Roger, and that was, again, really our first step into it. It was absolutely a wonderful experience. He really, you know, took into consideration our manufacturing techniques, came out and visited, and was very hands-on and as we're walking through the product that he wanted to produce, to make sure that it really falls in line with our capabilities, number one, because it's you know, at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. It's, you have to tailor it to a specific company's capabilities. So that's been a fantastic opportunity for us. And then we worked with another gentleman named Ted Berner. He's a furniture designer, so did a very unique line of cabinet hardware and so on. And that was, again, fantastic experience. And then I've also worked with Kravitz Design. Lenny Kravitz has a design studio in New York as well. Did a very unique line for them. I've also done with HOK design. That one is more tailored specifically on the antimicrobial attributes of bronze alloys. So it was that effort was really pushed more towards commercial work such as hospitals and those sort of things to try to help cut hospital-borne illnesses and infections and that sort of deal. So and now here today we're very excited to work with Ramza.
Yeah, and that is why we're here today. So you are launching a new collection, Oasis, with the design team from Robert A. Stern Architects. So why did you decide to partner with Ramza, and what do you feel they contributed to the overall portfolio? What may have already been missing?
The team from Ramza had given us kind of a design presentation on the specific products, and we knew right away, hey, boy, this is a must do. And as soon as you see the product, it's a very, very organic, modernistic line, which is totally different than some of the stuff we have. You know, it's very fluid and just beautiful, and the bronze really, really brings it to life.
Mm-hmm. Well, Lawrence and Thomas, we obviously have not forgotten about you guys and want to bring you into the conversation. So, while this was your first time designing for Rocky Mountain Hardware, this was actually not your first introduction to the company. So how have you worked with or specified Rocky Mountain Hardware in the past?
So we've worked with them on a number of different projects. Probably the most recent one was a private residence that we were doing in Martha's Vineyard. And they had a lot of unique cabinet hardware that really suited our clients' taste and style. But we work on a wide range of projects and have worked with them to supply door handles over at the Yale New Residential Colleges, which we did a few years back. The colleges dorms basically were being designed in the collegiate Gothic style. So while there was a sense of old world charm, there was also a need for a contemporary sort of sensibility and functionality. And some of the door handles that Rocky Mountain produced really, really fit that bill for us in terms of treading that line. So we've worked with them on large projects and small projects and just about everything in between.
Mm-hmm. Well, and with that, actually, can you just tell us a little bit more about Robert A. Stern Architects and really what the firm is well known for?
Certainly. I think what we're most well known for at the moment are high-rise multifamily buildings, buildings like 15 Central Park West and a lot of others that we have here in New York. But we do design those types of buildings all over the world. We design them in all over the country, in Latin America, in Asia. We also do a lot of institutional buildings, academic buildings, government buildings. And then also, as I mentioned before, we do a lot of private residences, whether they be homes or apartments for people. So we have a wide range of different project types and different studios within the firm where different architectural partners and the people underneath them sort of focus on each of those different architectural typologies.
Mm-hmm. And the firm was really founded on single family residences, and that continues to be one of the staples here in the office. And I think you can see that in really all of our work, that we have that kind of fine-grained sensibility, that appreciation of the smaller scale, and naturally that leads us to other collaborations.
Yeah, I would also point out too that even in our institutional or government buildings, there's always this, it always feels more homey than you would think in that type of building because of this background. And there's a sensibility of really paying attention to the human scale and the humanity of the people that are in the buildings. So even when we're doing other types of projects that are not strictly residential, there's always part of that DNA that sort of flows through.
Mm-hmm. Well, that also leads me to the next, because, really thinking about human-centric design, and a lot of that goes hand in hand with, designing product and making sure the product that, is in these beautiful institutional residential spaces that you're developing sort of all like flow and has a holistic feel. So, you as a firm have a very long record of designing product, everything from hardware to lighting and really beyond. So can you really describe the firm's history with product design and touch upon some of the things that you've done over the years?
Certainly. Just as Christian was saying before, as architects, we design all sorts of buildings at different scales, and we're very concerned about the small details and getting them right to make sure that, it impacts the overall design. And just as his, parents were approached by an architect, we too found that there were things missing in the market that we just needed time and again. And then, we'd have things made customer one-off, and then eventually opportunities presented themselves to us where we could partner with a manufacturer so that the next time we wanted to specify that, it was a ready-made product that we could just specify to our like and our taste and have it, customer semi-customized. But then the other benefit too, of course, is that it helps, get our name out to a wider market too, as having a ready-made product from a manufacturer means that other people get to see and own a bit of the Robert A.M. Stern design for their own homes, even if they can't, even if they're not, commissioning us to do a whole building, they can still have a part of Robert Stern aesthetic in their own homes.
Mm-hmm. And our office has always been interested in early 20th century precedent, and many of the more well-known designers in the Western tradition have kind of always had this connection to smaller scale objects and designing not only buildings, but say chairs, furniture, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think a lot of our interest in that was also kind of, inspired by this desire to kind of to touch everything within the lived experience, as designers, to really dig into that. We feel it gives us a lot more breadth and ability to kind of understand just what it means to even design a space.
Well, so with that, let's circle back to this new collection, Oasis. So what background can you share regarding the inspiration for that specific design?
Well, that's a great story.
Yeah. We love good stories.
So like most things, we always look towards precedent. Not that we're interested in copying, but we're looking to see what has worked in the past. Yeah. What is the basis of good design? And then how can we apply that for the here and now, for the contemporary? And in this case, we had first presented a whole range of different stylistic options to Rocky Mountain. The collection that we eventually went with was just one direction, but even within this one direction, there were a lot of different influences. Certainly there's a lot of modernism that you see in some of the pieces, but there's also a lot of like Art Nouveau, that sort of like supernatural, sort of organic, forms that stem from plants and flowers and things like that, as well as again going to the arts and crafts tradition, where and this sort of ties into like the Rocky Mountains whole methodology, the way that they do sand casting and everything. So all these different things were sort of like melding in our brains, and almost all the pieces have an organic fluidness to them. But in some cases, there are also these little geometric slices off the organic forms that bring a whole sort of different quality to it. So that's a little bit more modern. We were looking at some Brancusi pieces, like Bird in Flight, that has that attenuated sort of organic shape, but there's sharp edges at the top and the bottom. We're looking at some jewelry. Jewelry is obviously a very personal item. And one of the things about jewelry is, the way that it catches the light and reflects, gives you that little bit of sparkle. So one of the things we were very conscious of in creating the forms was, again, was the way the light would play across both the sinuous forms as well as some of those little angled slices that we put in to some of the pieces.
No, I completely agree. I think that's the right story. I mean, it really was this idea of, starting with some precedents that were related to a couple of mid-century pieces, and in the case of this collection, and kind of developing that even further by looking at the jewelry and looking at things that are even smaller scale. I mean, here, for example, we have a couple of the pieces that the Rocky Mountain has been sending us, and so these kinds of cuts or facets that really reflect the light was something from a very early early stage we were really interested in bringing throughout the whole collection.
I like the connection that you guys made between like hardware and jewelry, because I think a lot of times designers think of the hardware as sort of the jewelry of an interior space. I mean, you're sort of dressing it up, and it it could add, and depending on what you wear, right, with your outfit can really change the dynamic of the style. And the same, I think, with an interior space. But Christian, I kind of want to bring you back into the conversation, because, something that you can, obviously is just as important between jewelry and hardware is the craftsmanship. And I know that, all of your products are handcrafted by a dedicated team of artisans. So ultimately, how many hands touch an individual piece through the entirety of the manufacturing process?
Boy, quite a number. And again, even prior to producing the actual product, there's a whole process that happens up front, because hardware is not quite as straightforward as everybody might imagine it could be. There's a lot of little innuendos here and there, and so just getting the information from the job site to us, say, okay, here's all the handings and this and that and the other. There's so many details going into it up front is my point. Then beyond that, once we start the manufacturing process, man, any given product, I mean, we're touching 40 to 50 individual different hands, and it's and that begins from, say, a custom mold if we're hand carving a piece to create the master, building the molds. Once the production molds are ready to rock and roll, then we're at the point of hand packing the sand, and we're doing the lost wax casting. Once the castings are done, chopping the parts off of the tree, sandblasting the parts to blast all the sand or ceramic coating that's left on the parts, and then on through the process, which goes to hand grinding, going through a tumbling vibratory process that we do, being handheld into some of our CNC equipment, which we're machining the product. And then all the way through the finishing process, which is, hand brushed in a lot of cases, hand polished in a lot of cases, hand waxed for final finish, hand patinaed prior to the wax, and then through the assembly process. So again, each individual piece has its own unique little course it takes through our facility, but at the end of the day, it can be up to 50 different hands.
It's amazing. Well, actually, Thomas, I want to circle back to something you kind of mentioned when you held up the door handle, and you were sort of talking about the little facets, and kind of want to have you guys maybe elaborate on some of the other unique features of the collection that someone should expect to see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I can kind of lead with that here. I mean, I think that the first way to think about it is to kind of expect the unexpected. We love the idea that you might touch one of the pieces in the collection, and just sort of you might touch one of these facets, and just all of a sudden your hand will say to yourself, like, oh wait, what is this piece? I expected a completely flat or a round edge, and instead I can feel this facet. So that sensibility kind of carries through the rest of the collection. I mean, we looked at the back plates, for example, the rectangular back plates in the collection, and they're concave, and so they're going to reflect the light differently than just a flat back plate. We also we tried to tailor the shapes to kind of have a relationship with one another. So there's an egg-shaped back plate, that, you know, is related to some of the rounder, more organic shapes in the collection. And then I think, aside from the whole kind of modernist approach or the idea of facets and everything, overall, there was an interest in fluidity on the part of our team. And, you know, that really, I think, inspired a lot of dialogue with Rocky Mountain. There's the pieces that are kind of like drawn out and, you know, they're made thinner or they kind of expand in size, you know, like we're really looking at some of the cabinet poles, you know, and really interested in like the sinuous form, the idea of metal kind of moving, and, you know, and that's the kind of natural, the natural form and the natural shape that really inspired us, and in a way comes out of that jewelry process. Yeah.
I have to say, I love the scale. It's just like, you know, Rocky Mountain Hardware and, you know, Ramsa, you both kind of like straddle everything from the residential side to the commercial side of things to be able to accommodate, you know, it's something I said earlier, if not all, at least most, you know, project needs. And that's really something that the Oasis collection really offers. Well, I first can't wait to experience the collection for myself. And I'm excited, you know, if perhaps there was another Ramsa collection in the foreseeable future as well. Hopefully, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But Christian, Lawrence, Thomas, I would love to say thank you so much for your time and your insight today. It sounds like it was a really amazing collaboration between Rocky Mountain Hardware and Robert A.M. Stern Architects. And of course, to our lovely audience, please make sure to check out the Rocky Mountain Hardware to learn more about the Oasis collection. Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Hey design friends, this is Cindy Allen, Editor-in-Chief of Interior Design, and today I have the pleasure of sitting down with the President and CEO of MillerKnoll, Andi Owen. And boy, we have a whole lot of design and business to discuss. So let's get to know Andi better, hear all about her vision for MillerKnoll, their commitment to a better world, and of course, we'll talk about the future of work. So are you ready? Here we go. Andi, I'm so happy to see you.
Cindy, me too. It's been a while. So glad we can finally connect with all the craziness in the world. And thank you for using our new name. It's so nice to hear.
Of course. Well, so for everyone out there, which is so cool, is that like Andi was so generous about talking to us, like almost at the beginning of the pandemic, I want to say. It was a really long time ago. And we started taping and then technology, Wi-Fi was not allowing it to happen. So it's kind of crazy that like, oh, in between, look what happened.
Just a few things, right? For all of us.
I know. So it really does feel like it's the right time to chat. And I thank you so much for being so generous with just your thoughts and openness to the industry and sharing with all of us.
I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah. So, all right. First of all, for everyone out there, you'll tell us, but you've really had an illustrious career in an entirely different industry. And it's given you a unique perspective for sure. And now you've had the advantage, you've been with us in it for a few years, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the industry and what really drew you to us. Maybe to get started, just share some highlights of your background.
Oh, I'm not sure I would call it illustrious, Cindy, but that's very kind of you. You know, I spent the majority of my career in the fashion industry, and I have always really been attracted to sort of that intersection of creativity and business. And when I landed at the Gap, when I was early in my career, I found that. And I think it's, you know, a lot of people's first jobs, but it was an amazing place to learn and to grow. And there are a lot of things I carried from that industry into this. But it was a great career. And I would say I didn't really think I would find another industry that was as exciting or as wonderful. And here I am. And I have to say that there's so many wonderful things that drew me here. But number one, as you know, from being in the design industry for so many years, the people. So the talent and the creativity and just the amazing folks that I interact with every day have been just fantastic.
You know, I say, when people are outside of the industry, I always say, wow, you are so lucky to have found us, right?
Yes.
Don't you feel like that? I mean,
Yes.
fashion is, I have lots of friends in fashion too. So, but
Yeah.
still, once you make it into the design world, it's like,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah.
Well, I think all of us that have come from creative industries have gone through the whole, design thinking and what is design thinking. But until you actually are surrounded by people that are actually committed to problem solving design and how it can change people's lives, I think that to me was just a really, really great window to open. And then I say this all the time, but going from an industry that was so transformed by the digital revolution and so shaken to the core, to another industry that's kind of in the process of the same transformation has been a really interesting and unique process.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say is that what I love about this industry is that I really feel like not only are we solving problems, but we are creating things that make people's lives better and things that are not disposable, things that are heirlooms, things that you can hang on to, whether that's the amazing design of a space or a furniture product. So that's been a pretty nice transition for me as well.
I mean, fashion is so quick. It's definitely
Yes.
quicker than design for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I know you'll talk about that, but we used to always say that we sort of followed fashion, but it's very unique these days that everyone is interested in design, right? Everybody wants to be close and touch design because, as you said, the transformation in people's lives.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And you might say that the last, 18 months or however long it's been has been, difficult and horrible and chaotic and crisis. But to me, there's so many opportunities and so many interesting problems for us to solve and to think about, because not only has the way we work changed, but the way we live has changed so dramatically. And so when you think about design and the impact that design can have on the world and what we do as a broader community every day, I think it's just a really, really interesting and exciting time to be a part of it.
For sure. Okay, so I want your perspective and those observations that you see as being, well, you're not an outsider anymore, but that other kind of experience that you had. Give us the truth. Give us some truths.
You said it before, Cindy, and I'll echo it. Fashion is really fast. The industry that we're in now is a little bit slower. And I think for me, having come from an industry that was so transformed digitally and so shaken, coming to this industry was a little different, a little hard. And I think in some ways, we do have some catch up to do as far as how technology can enable what we do and how we think, how we design, how we solve problems. And in some ways, the pandemic, I think, has really brought that to the forefront and has sort of forced so much of that transition and so much of that change on our industry. But I have to say at the same time that I think the thoughtfulness and the core capability of understanding what we're here to do and how it benefits the end user or the client, I would hate to give that up in favor of speed. I do think there's a nice balance in how we think about what we do, especially at MillerKnoll, and I think in the design industry as a whole. So I wouldn't want to make us too much faster, but I think that the world has changed enough that I think that's one of the things that the industry will benefit from.
For sure. I still think about over this time period, the pleasure that the designers had when they got back together in the office to do their job, the part of their job that mattered the most that you couldn't do virtually. And there is something about that is very gratifying to know that it can't all be done, as you said, over airways or because of speed.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I was sitting with John Hoke, who's the creative director at Nike, and he was lamenting how you can't have a spontaneous creative interaction on a video screen. Like everything is very scheduled. So having that when you're back in person, and in some ways, we were all moving towards more of a hybrid or remote environment to begin with, but this great experiment has really let us see the good and the bad of what that looks like. And that's one of those things that I think we've all missed, particularly those people in the creative professions like us.
Yeah. How hard was it for you having pretty much just gotten there and being a leader? How personally, how difficult was that?
Oh gosh, I think it was probably the same for me as it was for everyone else. It was really hard. But what I have to say is, as I'm sure you know, I have a great, amazing group of people that I work with. And I take very little credit for what we went through. And I give all credit to them because, you know, our manufacturing plants worked throughout the whole crisis. We had amazing people putting their brains towards how we could get through this and creatively solve a whole number of problems. So it's been hard, but I think a real benefit, and I can't speak for Knoll Legacy because I wasn't involved in the business, but in hindsight, the MillerKnoll, both cultures, we're very purpose-driven organizations. And I think in times like these, more than ever, our responsibilities as leaders is to really keep people focused on that purpose.
Right.
And, you know, our purpose is to design for the good of humankind. And that's a great purpose when you're trying to get through a pandemic, right? And
Yeah,
I
for
think,
sure.
you know, Andrew at Knoll did the same thing. So I have to give a ton of credit to the team for rallying around, and then also just being able to rely on all these thousands of people that are really purpose-driven.
Well, thanks for that. Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, so we have to talk about this. We want to talk about this. You made headlines earlier this year. Oh my God, you made headlines when you announced the union of Herman
Yes.
Miller and Knoll
Yes.
to create MillerKnoll.
Yeah.
So I want to know everything, but maybe you could just give us share part of the journey.
Yeah, you know, it's one of the things when I first got to Herman Miller that was on my mind, and I was sort of like, oh, I wonder if I'm the first person that's ever thought of this. Well, I'm not. And I would say that both the leadership at Knoll and leadership at Herman Miller have over the years really looked at this as a combination. And I think one of the reasons is there's so much shared legacy and history and so many commonalities between how we think about what we do. Certainly all the special friendships between the Eameses and Saarinen and all those people in Cranbrook in the background certainly tie us together from a legacy perspective. But I think going back to how we view design and its importance in what we do every day and the products that we create really ties us together. And so now, kind of as one of the largest design companies in our industry, I think it's a pretty dramatic and transformative time. So in many ways, it feels a little bit like it was meant to be over the years. And in other ways, it feels like really just an exciting moment in time, I think, for the industry and for both of our organizations to come together.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you talk about the commonalities.
Yeah.
Don't they say it's something about, like, you know, the line between something that's much, the line between love and hate is very close, or something like, you know what I mean? Like two companies that had did, you know, you say that and you go, yes, of course, all those commonalities, but they were competitors, right? So it makes sense when you say that, when you bring it up in that way, when also when you think about, or as you were probably going through the process, this idea of somehow you guys were on paths that were meant to be together.
Well, I think you're right. We were fierce competitors.
Right.
And I think along with being fierce competitors comes a very, very healthy level of respect, right? There's people that you're always afraid that show up at an RFP next to you, and you don't want to see those people because they have such great competitive strengths. And I think Knoll was always one of those. And part of that is our commitment to some of those things that are common. And I think another thing, Cindy, is our culture and how we think about our partnerships with the design world, how we think about innovation, how we think about problem solving. Those things are super similar. And then if you kind of look back to transformative points in time in history, and I think about Florence Knoll and the planning unit and how that kind of changed the way corporate environments were, and then Robert Probst and the cubicle, I mean, like it or lump it, that was also a moment in time. So those kinds of things really do create kind of this fabric, but also, you know, the perceptions of competition. And when you actually get into the two companies, I think we've had the real blessing and privilege of seeing the other side, which is, oh, wow, look at this amazing, talented group of people that brought together kind of 1 + 1 makes 3.
Right. Yeah, that's terrific. What is the process with bringing these two companies together? Like, what has that been like?
I can say, honestly, it's a massive effort, right? I mean, I think any integration is. I think ultimately our goal throughout the process has been to really make sure that we are bringing the best of both legacy organizations together, because we do have just an amazing group of people. I think we're lucky that we share similar values and beliefs, but the critical thing here is of the 19 brands that we're bringing together, every single one of them has their own kind of zeitgeist and their own design aesthetic and point of view. And as we think about integration, I always say it's kind of like getting married. You used to pay rent twice, and you everything, all of a sudden you can combine your forces and invest in the future, but at the same time, you don't want to lose your individual personality. Right. So that's the caretaking that I think has been most top of mind for us, along with really thinking about how do we address the customer facing and partner facing parts of this first. So how do we make sure that we're showing up in front of the people that we're serving and our design partners in the world in as organized a way as we can quickly, because everybody wants to get to the other side of this quickly. So it's a big process, but we have a lot of smart people working on it. So we'll get through it.
Yeah, also the A&D industry, I mean, the designers, they kind of tell you also what they need if you ask them, right? They're very open and very passionate, and they're a great support because we're all together, right?
Yeah, it's true, Cindy, and it's been great because part of this process was we did a lot of interviews with our design partners, and we found out a lot of great information about, okay, what do they want us to do first, and what do they want to see? What could we do more of on both legacy companies? So that's been fantastic. And I would say with any situation like this, we're going to make mistakes along the way, and we're going to do some things well and not well. But we're really, really fortunate to have such strong partnerships in the design community, and our commitment to that continues, and we know that we will always get honest and thoughtful feedback, and that helps us, right? It helps us provide what our partners need, and it also helps us be better and be more innovative as we move forward.
Yeah, I always like kind of smile at the designers too, because they tell you, like, sometimes they just tell you how they feel about something. Yes. They're like very forthright and upfront, whether you want to hear it or not, right? So
yes, and I love that, actually, and I think I could speak for most of the folks in the company. We love that. That's important because that's what makes us better, right? Yeah. That feedback and that constructive criticism, and also the occasional, atta-girls and atta-boys.
Right.
Also,
exactly. What should we expect to see next, and maybe most importantly, what should the A&D clients, your clients, what should they expect to see next?
That's a great question. And, I think over the next 3 to 4 months, you'll start to see our branding roll out. For those of you in New York, we were in Times Square with our branding for MillerKnoll and NASDAQ and our new stock ticker, which was really exciting. So you'll start to see kind of the MillerKnoll identity come to life.
Congrats on that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been really great. And then for A&D clients, I would say probably the most significant next step has really been all the work we're doing towards building out our MillerKnoll dealer network. This has been a really thoughtful process. And from the beginning of this journey, I think one of the most compelling things to us about this merger was our combined product portfolio. And along with that, we really have to leverage that portfolio, but also make it easier for our partners and our dealers to access it, specify it, order it, all of those things. So we've been working behind the scenes to make sure that dealer network is set up so that we can work with our partners.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a very complex process. And
it is.
But hey, the good news is that, as you say, that designers are going, hello, I want to start ordering.
Right.
That's amazing. Yeah.
I mean, God forbid it was the opposite, right? But so now we've got a couple of small market pilots, working with MillerKnoll dealers, so we can learn all that fun stuff about the logistics and back of house and technology and all of that stuff. So we'll work through that for the next couple of months. And then by mid 2022, we should be complete with that transformation. And that's the first step, I would see. And then I would say, in the meantime, it's business as usual for all of our dealer partners, and we'll continue to work with both legacy businesses.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, there you go. So it's happening, everybody. It's happening.
It's happening.
It's happening. It's happening. Okay. So let's segue over to something that is really important to all of us, and something we need to talk about, which is social impact.
Yeah.
And what would you say is your vision for how MillerKnoll can positively affect change in communities, help better people's lives? What kind of initiatives have you got planned?
Listen, I think, our purpose, which I said before, designing for the good of humankind, all the words in that purpose really matter. And I think in the DNA of both of our organizations has been a commitment to not only sustainability of the environment, but sustainability of integrity in our communities and diversity. And so I think we'll continue kind of to leverage design, not only to problem solve for beautiful environments, but also to problem solve for people's lives. We think we can be integral, and we think the design community is integral to solving some of these larger problems in our society, which, as we all know, in the last couple of years have become even more important. And I have to say, Cindy, you know, I was actually pretty shocked and embarrassed when I started to look at the stats of what the design community looks like, and how few Black designers we actually have in our world. And so when we really started to familiarize ourselves with some of the issues there, we got the idea to launch the Diversity in Design Collaborative. And Herman Miller and Knoll were both founding members of this. And really the purpose of this is to bring like-minded companies together to share best practices, to make our efforts more concerted, to really find ways to increase the talent pipeline for Black and Brown designers. So whether that's from introducing them to the fabulous career of design and all sorts of design, graphic, interior, you name it, at a younger age, to helping them find educational opportunities, to helping them find internships, and then ultimately to helping them find work. So we sort of launched this idea at sort of like a kitchen table. Hey, what if we build it, will they come?
Right.
And then they did. You know, we had 19 founding companies, and we've doubled that, and then over 300 companies that are knocking on the door to get involved. So this is really not about MillerKnoll. It's about, I think, the design community and the difference that we can make. So that's one of the things that we're doing. And I'm excited to see the impact that I think we'll make there.
Yeah, for everyone out there. So it's DID, right?
DID. We have a website. We have a great team of people that are dedicated to bringing folks together. And again, it's just a great environment to share ideas, to see what other people are doing, and to bring resources together so that we can, again, make a concerted effort to solve the problem.
Can you share some of your sustainable initiatives?
I would say on the sustainability front, you know, we've joined together with Next Wave Plastics. I'm sure you saw. I am a dyed-in-the-wool environmentalist, so I've kind of found myself in the perfect place at MillerKnoll. But we really tried to find a way that we could not only reduce our use of single-use plastics, but also look at our products and see if we picked one product that could make the biggest difference to use ocean-bound plastics, what would it be? And so we picked Aeron, and we spent a couple of years trying to figure out how to make it with ocean-bound plastics. And we're super excited that we've launched it, and we anticipate we'll take about 23 million plastic bottles from reaching the ocean. So that's one of the initiatives that we have. We have tons more. Yeah. And then the last thing I'll say on this, we have a day of purpose. This is our second annual day of purpose, which was yesterday. It's election day in the US. And we use that to, we thought if we gave people the day off, it would remove some obstacles to voting, which we think is a big issue in the world. But also for our global employees, really to give them a day off to volunteer and to do things that matter in a way that gives them purpose. And so every time we do this, it's only the second time, but I'm so inspired by what people go out and do and how they give back to their communities. So those are just a few of the things that we're doing.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, but it's part of who we are. And we think it'll make a difference. Every little bit helps, right?
For sure. And you know, I'm so proud of the entire design industry, just in terms of their willingness and wanting to change and move to something better. I mean, that is the thing about the design industry, right? They are change agents. So when you talk about diversity or when you talk about sustainability, I mean, everyone wants to actually have a conversation about, right? This is how you change. So,
and you know, it's so interesting that you say that, Cindy, because one of the things I've noticed, while being shocked at the numbers and the data and representation, what I've also been shocked and really surprised and happy about is how quickly this community has banded around this as a problem and has looked for solution and jumped in. And I think it's just that mindset of innovation and problem solving that I think is really inspirational. So I have a ton of faith and confidence this community will solve this problem like we solve so many others.
Let's talk about something we've been talking about, which is the future of work. The big question that doesn't really have one answer. Actually, thank God it doesn't have one answer.
No, I
but
agree.
do you believe that offices are still relevant? I think I know the answer.
Yeah, I think you do, Cindy. It's the burning question, and it will be no surprise to you that I say yes. I think shared workspaces are still relevant. You know, our VP of Insights, Ryan Anderson, always kind of likens the experience of an office to a restaurant. It's like you may have an amazing kitchen at home and you may be a great cook, but the restaurant offers you an experience that you can't necessarily get in your home. And we feel the same way. But to your earlier point about sort of how this workspace and everything is evolving, we've really been using all of our own workspaces as labs. And so we started innovating and changing our retail workspaces in Stamford, Connecticut. We've used the design yard in Michigan, main site in Michigan, our Hong Kong offices to really redo them and say, if we were to take a neighborhood approach and we were to look at every function and how they want to come together and collaborate, how they want to work together, how would we change our own spaces so that we can account for hybrid and technology? And what if you have meetings where only 3 people are there and the rest are virtual? So really taking that as an opportunity to learn and innovate on our own campuses, because, you know, we've been back in the office for quite some time now, and our manufacturing folks have never left the office. So as we kind of learn and make our own mistakes and have our own victories, then it gives us the opportunity to share that with all of our clients, because they're all figuring it out too. You know, I think I've spent more time with other CEOs talking about shared workspaces and how we're going to come back in the last couple of months than I have in my whole career. So a really interesting time and lots of learning there.
Yeah, you know, I'm obviously been talking to designers nonstop, and it is for them is also such an exciting time to have those conversations with their clients, right? They haven't had that type of conversation maybe in their entire careers, just in terms of this like almost unending flexibility of how people work. And for them, it's also a great freedom and a great opportunity to think differently. I mean, look, I think you said that too. We've been doing a lot of things right, getting up, getting ready to the, so there's a lot for us to be proud of, but this other type of shift is new for everybody. And to talk about it and think about what is the future of the office look like, it's there. It's just going to be different for everybody, right?
Absolutely. And I think that difference is what makes it fun. If you try, you know, how can you be intentional about the experience you want? What's the feedback you're getting from your employees and what do they need and want? And that's really critical. You know, how are they feeling? You know, some of the stuff that we've learned is that there's so much desire to have flexibility in working, but it's not just where you work, it's when you work. You know, we founded Future Forum and we got so much information from being part of that group, and that flexibility that we've all gotten around so many parts of our lives is going to be really critical to inform our spaces going forward.
And for sure, you know, I always say this, no matter what, everyone is different, and certainly no one size fits all at all, ever. Yeah. But what's so great about it is the world needs the design community to get them there. The whole design community, the designers, the architects, the manufacturing, the product, all of it is it's going to keep changing. And that's what's exciting.
Totally agree.
How do you make the hard decisions? Like for you, what allows you to make the hard decisions? How do you have the courage to make the hard decisions about you? How do you do that?
How do I make the hard decisions? I listen a lot, Cindy, and I surround myself with people that are different and smarter and have lots of ideas. And so I ask a lot of questions. I'm annoyingly like a toddler in that way. Really? I ask why 107 times a day. And I think that mindset, I'm a naturally curious person. I consider a lot of different things. So when it comes time to make a hard decision, and I think we've all had to make a lot more of them in the last few years, that mindset of really trying to be curious and trying to understand a variety of viewpoints helps kind of guide my internal compass, right? And I think that's important. And the other side is you have to know yourself, and you have to know the values of the organization you represent and your own values. And I think that integrity and that commitment to purpose and values keeps me very grounded in what to do, because sometimes, well, many times the right thing is not the easy thing,
Right.
but we know what it is. And so I think that combination of those things really helps me, well, in life and at work.
Right. Do you think that there's, do you think there's something about you that you left something very successful? The timing of going to Herman Miller at the time to making big changes in a time where the world is making big changes.
Yeah.
I mean, do you reflect on that?
I do. I mean,
Yeah.
I think when you go through life, listen, I'm at the age and the stage where I can make choices.
Yeah.
But when I left my last career and I jumped and I said, I'm going to go to graduate school and I'm going to say no to jobs for a year and I'm just going to see what happens, that's really scary.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's really liberating. And I think when you live through making difficult decisions like that for yourself, and you come out the other side to a whole new world with a whole lot of experiences, it gives you the confidence, and it
Mhm.
also gives you the courage to try new things. And I think in the design community, we're trying new things and innovating every day and failing. I fail miserably all the time, every day, in many ways. And I think that gives me the courage and confidence to make hard decisions because I know at the other side of it will be better.
Mhm. No, I mean, it's just great advice for people to live by. There's so many people right now in the world that are making changes in their lives. And
Yes.
you're just a wonderful example of, of strength and courage. And as you say, making tough decisions to try to move things forward in the best possible light, really for all of our futures, right?
Yeah. And I think you're
Yeah.
right, because I think actually this time has really made people reflect a lot more
Right.
on life and
Right.
what they want in life and make those
Right.
hard decisions. So
Yeah. Well, listen, I know we could talk for another couple hours.
we
And
could.
have
You're
to
so much
wind
fun to
someone-
talk
I know, you're so good. And I know the design community is like embracing the change and super excited about what's coming next. And if you want to share like a final thought about anything as I see the light going down in my neighborhood right now, something about the light ahead.
Thank you, Cindy. We're so excited about sort of the joining of these two amazing modern design companies in the future here. We have a great group of people, and we will continue to work closely with all of our design partners, and we welcome that feedback. We welcome that interaction because we think that gives us strength and helps us move into the future. So we couldn't be more excited about the future ahead and being able to rely on the strengths and talents out there in the community. And it has been such a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, for me too. By the way, we always say at Interior Design, we say we're unapologetically modern. And now you have two modern forces together with MillerKnoll. And I really am sincerely excited about what's ahead. And I want to thank you, Andi Owen, for being so generous with your time and your thoughts and your honesty about the company.
Thank you, Cindy. It's been such a pleasure to chat with you.
I'm Marcia Spear. I'm president of Poggenpohl for the US. Poggenpohl is originally from Germany, the oldest kitchen brand in Germany and the world. Next year, we will celebrate our 130th anniversary. We're in our Soho flagship showroom today. This is the first US location of Poggenpohl's rebranding.
My name is Bas Mol. I'm working for Poggenpohl and I'm responsible for sales worldwide. We were trying to find something with a wow effect, something exceptional. By coming in here, it's already the high ceiling, it's the pillars. High ceilings were a challenge for us because we never dealt with this before. We're always looking for a high ceiling, but this was exceptionally high and it sort of challenged us to to plan the kitchens up to the ceiling. And normally we go, let's say in meters, 2.5 to 3 meters. Yeah, but over here we go way over 4 meters, 5 meters high. And we wanted to make it not only for the design, but also functional. Everything we planned can be put into practice as well. I think my favorite part of the showroom is the entrance. Once you come in, the first impression is like meeting people, sticks into your mind. And I think this creates really the effect, wow, this is something that I haven't seen before. This is exceptional.
My name is Angelo Loscudato. I'm a designer and sales manager. The space here in Soho is fully up to date, brand new, with the latest Poggenpohl product. My favorite Poggenpohl collection is the Moto Plus. It allows you to show open and closed with the appearance that countertop is floating. It's really, really cool. Another collection in the showroom is the Segmento, which allows you to have a design where there's no handles. Clients these days want simplicity and they want it clean. So that allows you to do a complete clean design. A showroom like this allows a designer like me to present a full kitchen where you have a full layout and work triangle so that the client can see firsthand how it's going to work for them.
Poggenpohl looks to inspire our architects and interior designers, those that have an eye for our engineering, our luxury, the materials that we put together. So it makes for a seamless partnership.